Intrust Reserve. We're with you for a fantastic round 10 clash between the Central Queensland Capras and the Luxury Paints Ipswich Jets. Great to have you with us on Phoenix Radio, phoenix.com.au. Smith somehow right down the instant touchline, 12-4 the score. Well, the first attacking opportunity the Capras had.
Hello and welcome to another edition of After the 80, your local source for everything rugby league. I'm your host, Ben Wilmot, and from all of us here at After the 80, we hope you had an enjoyable Anzac Day. Joining me on the panel, as always, the man, the myth and the legend that is Anthony Bomber Breeze. How was your weekend and Anzac Day? No,
very good. We got the IRL games going on the weekend there. The Intrust games went good and the NRL finished the weekend off, even though it was Tuesday. Finished the weekend off yesterday with some great games.
Yeah, so. Golden point finish, not a bad one for a Anzac Day test.
Very good.
And familiar face joins us back on the panel for After the 80, manager of Rugby League Ipswich, Brendon Lindsay.
Thanks, Ben.
Excellent. Good. Enjoy your weekend as well?
Yeah, it was. It was a busy one, but enjoyed it, mate.
It's been a hectic schedule to start the year as well. I'm sure you've been keeping busy. Well, round 8 of the Anzac round of the Intrust Super Cup kicked off on Saturday with the Wynnum Manly Seagulls taking on the Central Queensland Capras. And the Capras got the much-needed points in a fierce competition, getting up 34-22. Let's take a look at the results from the weekend in round 8 of the Intrust Super Cup. And as we see, the first game of the round was the Wynnum Manly Seagulls getting upset by the Central Queensland Capras, and another upset there was the Mackay Cutters getting a 33-10 win over the East Tigers, Bomber.
Yeah, well, CQ, like away from home too, so that's probably even a bigger effort. And like I said, the East Tigers were in form there, and obviously Mackay turned up at their home ground and give them a touch-up, really, 33-10s.
And as we see as well, with the PNG Hunters getting a huge win over the Burleigh Bears. Burleigh started the season quite low on the ladder now, but the PNG Hunters at the opposite end of the spectrum, taking them to the top, I believe, Brendon.
Yeah, it's a fact that tends to happen in the Intrust Super Cup. You get some success the year prior. Obviously, Burleigh winning the competition last year, and they lose some key players, and it takes them a year or two to bounce back.
Happened to the Jets the year before as well. I guess we're starting to see the Jets turn it around as well. Do you see that the Burleigh turning it around this season, or as you said, do you see it being a season-by-season kind of prospect?
Looking at their results, I think it's probably going to take them a year. But yeah, look, it's just where we sit in the Intrust Super Cup. So it's on one hand very good to see the players move on to the NRL, but on the other, it's tough for the clubs.
It's a plus and negative of being a feeder system into that NRL system, isn't it?
Yep.
Now to the game in focus this week, which saw the Ipswich Jets upset South Logan Magpies 36-30 in a nail-biter. Both teams turned up the heat in the second half of this high-octane match. Wes Conlon took the Man of the Match honours, and Bomber, I'm sure we can both agree he deserved the Man of the Match award for his performance on the weekend.
Oh, he certainly did. He was in fine form there on the weekend. He'd been in good form the last couple of weeks there, so I don't know what it was about this game. Maybe the TV game there seems to bring the best out in a few players there, but he was definitely the most dominant player on the field. So.
Brendon, how much confidence would you take out of this game, considering just how many players from the Magpies side are Broncos-affiliated players? They did lose Joe Offengawi to the Broncos for that weekend, but it doesn't mean any less of a great performance from the Jets to upset a team like that.
Yeah, look, it was. It was good to see as well that obviously the Jets had some key people out. So Mary made his debut for this year. Peter Whittaker, Peter Whittaker, come off the bench. And I think, as well as Wes having a very good game, Lachlan Rowe I thought was outstanding. He's a big body and really dented the line and took it to those big South Logan forwards.
It was Captain Dane Phillips' 100th game in the Jets colours as well, and as we just see the little inside ball to Michael Purcell to get a fantastic try, showing his speed once again, the kangaroo catcher with his trademark try celebration as well. We've seen it quite a few times this year, and as the other guy we've seen score quite a few tries there, just picking up the ball, was Richard Pandia.
Oh, Richard had a fine game as well. Obviously, he's on the radar for PNG's selection there, so obviously if they were watching on the weekend, he's definitely in their squad, so he had a blinder. But like Brendon said there, Lockie Rowe, he ran for more metres than anyone on the field, and he come off the bench, so just shows what a big game that Lockie Rowe did have.
Well, we've had Jesse Roberts out for the majority of this, so far this season, and now with Billy McConaughey out as well, Ben and Shane Walker have done pretty well to unearth a new face in Mitch Carpenter, as well as Lachlan Rowe coming up through the BRL, and that's when you want new faces really stepping up, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, and it's about those guys knowing their role, and obviously they bent the line for the Jets on the weekend and allowed guys like Wes
celebrating right now
to do what he does best.
Yep.
It was really good to see. They held the ball. They completed a little better on the weekend, which allowed them to obviously play the style of game that they like to play.
Was it also a bit of a difference of coming out of the blocks a lot quicker as well? They've unfortunately put themselves behind quite early on in quite a few games. They've ended up playing a lot of catch-up football from that point. But we saw against South, they put themselves ahead from the start and took a lot of confidence from being ahead on the scoreboard. Do you think that's going to be important for the Jets moving forward?
Look, I don't think they worry about their starts per se. I think it's more about just making sure that they play for the full 80, and by that, they hold the ball for longer than those teams, and which allows them to obviously wear the big teams down and eventually get the win.
As we saw, there was some tense moments in the final 10 minutes of play as well, Bomber, with South Logan hitting back with back-to-back tries, as we see the first one there, and as they spread the ball to the left-hand side, we'll see another runaway try. Unfortunately, Richard getting pushed away there, and it wasn't quick enough to pull him in. Yeah,
I think the Jets always had the game in control. They're obviously a few heart flutters, obviously, with these two quick tries there, but Richard made up for his mistake there, and he scored the late try there, which obviously got him the win. So
great offload from Ben White as well, another quiet achiever for the Jets.
Yeah, well, like we were saying earlier there, about 6 of them were playing BRL last year. Nathan Gorton was in there, like I said, Peter Whittaker, Lachlan Rowe. They've all stepped up. Nat Neal had been their best forward all year. He was out, so Tyson Lafipo and Lockie Rowe took it on themselves to go forward. So.
Do you see that win as being a bit of a turning point for the Jets this year?
Well, obviously I tipped them the week before there when they went up north there, and obviously South are obviously a bigger fish down here and on their home turf. So obviously if the Jets can take a lot of confidence out of that win, and can't see why they can't roll anyone.
Brendon, last year was the first time the Ipswich Jets hadn't made the finals football in about 6 seasons. Do you see this year as they're definitely on track to return to finals football this season?
Yeah. Look, it's definitely a very important game from that on the weekend. I've been really impressed with the energy of Chris Ash that he's brought to the team. Ash has been playing some good football, and I really like the way that they brought Luke Capewell back off the bench and introduced his running game a little bit more. I guess it's just continually creating and finding the best fit for each of those guys, their top 17. So look, I think definitely a turning point for the season for the boys.
Well, they did start the year with Chris Ash coming off the bench, Luke Capewell and Dane Phillips in the halves. They had Ash in at hooker a couple of games as well. Do you think that they found their combination now with Capewell in the hooker role? Gets his hand on a lot of the ball, but as you said, you've got so much injection from Chris Ash. Good to see that kind of combination going together.
Yeah, look, Luke's a wonderful player, but I just feel that the style of play that the Jets play, it's difficult to in particular if you're a direct player, which I think Luke normally is. So look, yeah, it was good to see on the weekend the boys gelling and obviously putting on some good tries and getting a good win. That's
what we want to see from Ipswich. Well, moving on to the second game in focus this week, and it was a top of the table clash between the Redcliffe Dolphins and the Sunshine Coast Falcons. It was neck and neck competition at half time, but the Dolphins just turned on the burners in the second half and proved too good for the Falcons, winning 46-28. Bomber, after this game, it appears that Redcliffe are an unstoppable force this year after only losing 2 of the 8 games so far.
Yeah, well, they began this game very slow. It was 18-0 after about 12 minutes, I think, to the Sunny Coast. And obviously by half-time they'd hit back. Redcliffe playing at home there, so they're always going to be hard to beat and they're always going to play the 80. But they obviously can't let some of them other big teams get 18-0 on them. So if P&G are up 18-0 against them, it's going to be very hard to friggin' beat them. So probably a slow start's probably the only negative for Redcliffe out of that game. But they're the best team in the comp at the moment and probably deserve the favouritism that they're getting.
Brendan, the Falcons are a big feeder team for the Melbourne Storm, and the Redcliffe Dolphins are probably the main feeder team for the Brisbane Broncos as well, with quite a few stars. Benji Marshall obviously being out for them at the moment. But as Bomber was just touching on as well, for both of those teams, would their coaches be a little bit disappointed that they both let in so many points early on?
Yeah, probably. I just like the enjoyable, a couple of big hits in this game, plenty of tries scored. I think it's great for the supporter to go and watch a game like that. It's probably not as good for the coaches, but there was plenty of tries scored in that game. I enjoyed it.
Bomber, there's a few guys in the Redcliffe side especially that are pushing for Brisbane Broncos spots as well, with Tomo Pajcic coming back through from injury. Do you see him possibly stealing back a spot off Tautau Moga?
Well, he was good for the Broncos last year, Tom. So obviously coming back from injury there, I'd say he probably needs to get a few more games under his belt in the Intrust before Wayne has a look at him, unless there's obviously a major injury. So, but Tautau's playing all right for the Broncos, so I'd say he'll hold his position for a few more weeks.
Well, Brendon, as you said, a few big hits, and as we just see another one there, but I think we'll see one of those tries to Tomo Pajcic here as he gets on the end of a ball out on the left-hand wing. Good contest between the two. Redcliffe at home as well. I guess you'd expect them to take the win. Do you see them as being a bit of a fortress at home this season?
Well, obviously anyone that goes to Redcliffe there, it's hard to win there. They always get a big crowd down there, big vocal crowd. So, so home ground advantage is a big plus for them down there.
Considering that they've still continued their winning form, I guess, over the last couple of weeks, and that's been without the inclusion of Benji Marshall, who you'd say is a huge inclusion even for an NRL side. Is it teams going to be quite wary of the fact that they're going to prove quite a force, especially come finals time? Yeah,
look, Redcliffe's a club that's always there or thereabouts. They've got big boys. They've got a very professional outfit, coaching side as well. So look, it's about, obviously it's about those guys, playing week in, week out. I just feel that they might be a little too structured, especially coming up against the sides like the Jets that play that ad-lib stuff, but time will tell.
That's it. Well, now on to the Ipswich Rugby League competition, and the round kicked off with the West End Bulldogs going down to the Fassifern Bombers 22-50 on Saturday afternoon. Bomber, this season hasn't been too kind for the Bulldogs. What do you think that they need to do to turn around their season and register their first win of the season now? Well,
we had Cole on the show last week there, and we mentioned it to him. It was the slow starts by the Bulldogs that has been costing them games, and it's exactly what happened again on the weekend. Half time of that game was 32-0 to Fassifern, and they won the second half, and they did that against Goodner as well. So I was talking to Cole after the game there, and Cole, he wants to play the second half and the first half, and first half second, so they can get off to a half-time lead. But unfortunately, you have to try and get the players G'd up for the first half. You get them going, which at the moment Cole obviously can't do at the moment, but obviously the half-time speech gets them going. So.
As Bomber was saying, BL, that's a big turnaround in the second half, especially after the Bombers came out firing so quickly in the first half. I guess for the Bulldogs, there's still work to be done, but for Fassifern, that's another great showing by the team. They really seem to be on fire at the start of the season.
Yeah, look, I think Fassifern have been able to get a fairly decent squad together. They've got some experience there with Scott Ireland and David Farlongo, and obviously playing some good footy. They're definitely scoring some tries. So it's only early in the season, but obviously they're the front runners, I think, at this stage.
As we look at the other results from the round as well, we had another good win for Goodner, just a 1-point win over the North Tigers. Unfortunately, it wasn't a field goal finish as the scoreline might suggest, but it was a matter of Goodner getting ahead by 7 points leading into the final few minutes, and North Tigers hitting back with a converted try to bring that score up. Good contest between the two teams. They've both been pretty solid to start the season. Yeah,
I was over there on the weekend. Good to come out of the blocks on fire and led 12-0 there, but North stayed in the fight there and got back to 12-all, and then Goodner went ahead 18, and then it was 18-all, and then they were ahead 24, and then when they got down there near the end, Corey Kirk basically iced it with a field goal to go 7 ahead, and then North scored in the last minute.
Excellent. Well, the final game of the round as well was the Eastern Cobras going down 16-24 to the Swifts Bluebirds at home. And Brendon, we did mention this last week as well. The Eastern Cobras game got moved from North Ipswich Reserve back out to the Redbank Plains Recreational Reserve. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but that's a reward for great crowd numbers.
Yeah, look, we tried to place a few games for the Cobras at the Oval because just due to that club being able to receive a gate. But the last, probably the Wednesday night, the catch-up game, and the Thursday night before Easter, just the crowd, due to the crowd numbers, the guys down at the Cobras decided to take all their games back home, and it's a really enjoyable thing to see that the club's succeeding and that the local crowds are coming out to support them.
That's got to be pleasing from an administration point of view as well, to see a new team entering the comp like that and already having so much support that you're ready to facilitate bringing more games to their home ground. Does it speak to strengths of the Eastern Cobras in years to come as well? Oh,
look, they've got a good crew down there. Obviously some good people in Elton Grace and Jody Elder, looking after the club. Morris is a very, very good coach. He is obviously our Coach of the Year last year from reserve grade. So look, they were always going to succeed. It's going to be a long year for them, but I'm glad to see that they've already had some success on the field as well.
Yeah, success on and off the field. That's great to see for the Cobras, and hopefully we see them stick around in the competition for many years to come. They've been a great addition to the competition. As we look at the ladder now as well, it's quite tied up all at the top there. We've got 4 teams all on 14 points. There's still, and the Fassifern Bombers sitting there on 13, but with a game in hand as well. So you could say if they were to win that extra game as well, they might be top of the table. So 9 and 8 for the Eastern Cobras and West End Bulldogs. Sorry, so quite an even competition. Bomber.
Well, you can't get any closer than that. Well, you can if they're all on 14 points, but other than that, they're 4 teams on 14, one on 13. It just goes to show that the comp is a fairly even competition, and that's the type of competition that obviously Rugby League Ipswich are after. They don't want the floggings and all that there. That's no good for anyone. Well, it is if you're supporting the team, but other than that, that's very good competition, and hope it keeps going like that all year. So,
Brendon, I guess as Bomber said, pleasing for you guys to see a competition so tight at this point in the season already.
Yeah, very much so. You got your traditional slow starters, Goodner, that have obviously done some work over the pre-season and got out of the blocks. Norse have obviously got a couple of key people still to come back, and Brothers have started the competition well. And Swifts has sort of been, one that I probably didn't peg to be, to start the season as well as they have. But they've surprised a few as well. So no, it's great to see.
And the Cobras surprising a few with a couple of early wins as well. It's been an interesting season so far, and I'm sure it'll continue that way. Well, coming up next on the program, we'll be discussing all the controversy from the South Sydney Rabbitohs versus Brisbane Broncos game and the upsetting win the Gold Coast Titans had over the reigning premiers, the Cronulla Sharks. All that and more here on After the 80. And welcome back to After the 80, your local source for everything rugby league. Now to the game that everyone has been talking about over the weekend, and the South Sydney Rabbitohs took on the Brisbane Broncos at home. There were a few calls that went the Brisbane Broncos' way, that what appears a few mistakes made in the bunker. Broncos ended up taking a win 25-24 thanks to a left foot kick from Anthony Milford. Now, Bomber, is it safe to say it wasn't a good night for the bunker, with a few calls going the way of the Brisbane Broncos that a few of the Souths fans weren't too happy about?
Oh, well, obviously there was probably one that they've admitted. Obviously the Tautau Moga one, which we'll probably see later there. But the Corbin Sims one there, see, everyone thought that was wrong, me included there. So when we see the action coming up shortly there from the kick. But under the rules, it was a fair try. I know most fans would have been blowing up over that, but obviously that's what the rule book states. So.
Well, so far we've seen that try by Corey Oates, who's finally kicking into gear after a bit of a slow start to the year, and Jimmy Roberts as well, who's probably pushing for an origin spot himself for New South Wales. Brendon, you're a Blue supporter. Would you be happy to see Jimmy Roberts in there?
Oh, look, I'm happy to see anyone with that amount of pace in a side. He's definitely quick and talented, and you know, they're the type of guys that you give them half a chance and they score those tries. So, yeah, look, it'd be interesting, but looking forward to it.
It'd have the speed of Jimmy up against the athleticism of Corey Oates from what we've seen in this game so far. But I think we're coming up to that try to Corbin Sims that you're talking about, Bomber. And as you said, it looks messy. Yeah,
well, the rule book, so even though he's in an offside position, the rule book states because John Sutton put his foot out there
and played at the ball
and played at it, if he doesn't regather it, it puts Corbin Sims onside.
Okay.
It doesn't look good, but that's what the rule book says. And I know over the weekend they've been blowing up saying it shouldn't be in the rules and that, but it's in the rules, so that's a fair try.
There's a fair few people blowing up because they didn't know the rule as well.
Yeah.
I guess is that a case of some fans needing to know the rules a bit more before they start laying off on the Facebook chat?
Well, this day and age of social media, there everyone's an expert and everyone's a keyboard warrior, so they can put whatever they want on Facebook and other social media outlets there. But if a lot of them knew the rules, they wouldn't be putting too much on there.
And PL, I guess for the Brisbane Broncos as well, they're traditionally a team that does cop a bit of heat, especially when it comes down to 50-50 calls that seem to fall the Brisbane way. A lot of fans seem to say that's because they're a powerhouse in terms of a money-making machine for the NRL. Do you think that really comes into play at all in terms of the officials' minds?
No, I don't think so, not at all. You know, they're a team that really hang in games, obviously coached by a very good coach, and a lot of the times that the good teams, they make their own luck, and if you get the odd call go your way, then so be it. Everybody makes mistakes.
We've got a close try here by South Sydney, and a big hit put on by George Burgess, a man who's been in a fair bit of hot water himself this season. As we see. McCulloch unfortunately dropping the ball there just over the line. He would have liked to have had that one, and Anthony Milford making up for it.
This is where the bunker got it wrong, and they've admitted there. Like, he's dived over the line, and there's 3 or 4 sets of hands on him over the line, and then about a couple of seconds later, the ball pops out. So.
So initially on the ground, they were saying because the tackle wasn't called held, he was able to pull it out. But this was the other controversial moment, I guess, as we see regardless of whether or not you think it's a knock-on or not here in the pickup of the ball off the ground, sensational effort to kick off your right foot, which is his traditional kicking foot, and slot it from the left-hand side.
Well, firstly, it was a knock-on, but after the knock-on, getting away from the knock-on, that's mean to be able to sidestep from your right on your left and put it over is a sensational effort in a thing. So good. But blowing up about that had nothing to do with the bunker. If the referees missed that, and in the off-season, the competition committee, which has a fair few coaches on it, decided to pull the bunker from looking at that. So under the rules last year, the bunker could have looked at that if the referee decided to, but this year they can't. So you can't have it both ways.
Always some contentious calls every week. I guess it also comes down to a lot of different opinions from the fans and the players themselves. Well, now to one of the upsets that happened this Anzac round was the win with the injury-stricken Gold Coast Titans having over the Cronulla Sharks, who are the reigning NRL premiers. Brendon, the Sharks were the sure favourites going into the game. What does this mean for the Gold Coast Titans to get such a big upset?
Look, I think the Titans have been knocking on the door. I mean, everybody knows they're a team that play a pretty decent brand of football. But I think that the best thing about the Titans is the fact that they just hang in. They hang in the games. They don't let the score or things that go against them affect them. And in the end, they got away with this one against a very good side.
Seems to be a staple of the 3 Queensland teams. They do compete for the full 80 minutes, and as we've seen the inclusion of a few big players, their injury list just continues to cause headaches for their coach. Though Grevschmal getting another injury there to keep the rotating system of players in and out from the Titans side.
Well, the Titans had lost a lot of players through injury there, but they're starting to gain a few back. Anthony Don was out. He come back and had a sensational game, and he had Jaron Hayne, his first game back after a while there, and he got the Anzac Medal as man of the match. So
Dan Sargentson would be kicking himself for missing probably one of the easiest tries of his career. As long as he hangs over the ball, he's over the line.
Yeah, well, that's it. You've got to be ready when Jared gets in to dummy up because he's got a bullet pass there. But that was Jared's best game. this year for him, and it proves that if he can stay on the field and they can get a few of their players back, they'll cause a lot of upsets heading towards the end of the year.
Would you say that means he's worth all of the off-field drama that surrounds the club? You've dealt with it yourself with the Parramatta Eels. He's certainly lived up to the hype in the Glitter Strip.
Yeah, well, it's hard there. He gets the headlines there. Like he doesn't produce the headlines there. He might be the one having all these dreams, but he doesn't produce the headlines and just keep writing about himself. So, but if he just concentrates on football, he's probably one of the best players in the league. But
I guess you can't underestimate the inclusion of Nathan Peats as well. He's a classy player, and I guess he'd be one of the front runners for a Blues jersey as well if they're looking for a new hooker for the future.
Oh yeah. Could be. I'd like to see him just stick though. But no, there's definitely no coincidence that the Titans get away with a win like that with some key inclusions like with Hayne and Pete. So no, it was very good to see him obviously get some success over, as I said, a very good side.
Their recruitment drive has definitely been an impressive part of the Gold Coast Titans over the last couple of seasons. I think Jared Wallace going over there from the Brisbane Broncos seems to have been playing at a whole different level since going to the Titans.
I think it's just an opportunity, and obviously you throw the halfback in Taylor as well. Kids like that, they get opportunities week in, week out, and big minutes. Then you know they really, if the Titans, which they have been smart with those two selections and bringing them to their club, then you know you're gonna get the results.
You see Ryan James as he's a bit of a firebrand on the field. Do you think he's a good captaincy selection for the side going forward?
Look, if it settles him down, I guess, yes. He does. He's gives a fair few penalties away, but look, you know, I think everyone reacts differently, and obviously the coach and staff there have seen something in Ryan, so you know it might be the ticket to obviously settling him down and allowing him to play some good footy.
Well, he knows how to fire up the referees. Maybe he knows how to fire up his teammates as well. Well, coming up next on the program, we're going to be previewing all the action to come this weekend in round 9 of the QRL Intrust Super Cup season and round 7 of the Rugby League Ipswich competition. All that and more here on After the 80. Welcome back to After the 80, your local source for everything rugby league. Round 7 of the Rugby League Ipswich competition will be kicking off on Saturday with the Swifts Bluebirds taking on the West End Bulldogs. Bomber, do you think West End can use their second half performances to get their first win of the 2017 season?
Well, for Cole's sake, I hope they can. They haven't been far away in a lot of the games there, but like we said earlier there, it's the first half. They've got to come out and contain the big Swiss forwards early, and if they can go in a half time a couple of points down or even ahead, the second half, they've been coming home hard. So
does it matter of starting the warm-up about an hour before the game?
Oh, well, like Cole said, if they can play, if you can tell them the second half as they're running out there, maybe that's what he's got to do. So play 2 second halves.
Bit of mind psychology on the players, I like it. Well, the second game of the round will see the Fassifern Bombers taking on the Norths Tigers, and the game has been moved from Hayes Oval to Keith Sternberg Oval as well. Brendan, do you see another tough match between two of the competition leaders there as well? Yeah,
really looking forward to this game. Word out of the Tigers is that Josh Roberts should be back on the park this weekend. So
the Musketeer himself.
The Fassifern Bombers coming down to Norths Tigers. It'll be a cracking game.
Norths traditionally a pretty structured team as well. I guess for Fassifern they've flown out of the blocks. I guess this will be a tough test for them, especially with the experience that the Norths Tigers host and being at home as well. They're always tough to beat at Keith Sternberg. Yeah. As I said, really enjoying.
Going to look forward to obviously watching this game and hopefully the old Tigers can sneak a win.
Well, my game of the round is the third game between the Goodna Eagles and Brothers Ipswich, being played at the Goodna Eagles home at Woogaroo Field. That's going to be a tough task for both teams.
Yeah, well, obviously Goodwin have hit a bit of form now, and obviously back at home there's going to be a big advantage for them. And Brothers, while they haven't been setting the world on fire there, they've won their enough games, and most teams have trained off for Anzac Day, but Pat actually had a training session on Monday down there. So
Okay.
So
Bit of extra tactics from the O'Doherty.
yeah, so they had the weekend off. On the weekend they got down there to support their other grades. So it's good to see the whole club getting together to support each other. So.
And the Eastern Cobras earning their bye this weekend. Well, moving on to the Intrust Super Cup, and round 9 will be kicking off with the PNG Hunters taking on the Northern Pride at home. They also have the international side, the Kumals, getting selected on the Sunday as well, the day after the PNG Hunters and Northern Pride game at National Football Stadium. So I think there'll be a few players that will be looking to make a final selection pitch on the day as well, Bomber.
Yeah, well, obviously everybody wants to represent their country. That's the ultimate in rugby league, and to make the Kumals team over there, obviously it'll be a big thing for a lot of them there. Obviously we've got our own stars here, Richard and Sebastian, that'll be looking for good games as well to push their case.
And a former Ipswich Jet and Rod Griffin, who might be earning himself a call-up as well. Well, the Ipswich Jets had their home game this weekend taking on the Burleigh Bears. Just a reminder that this game will be streamed live on the Phoenix Media Hub if you can't make it to North Ipswich Reserve on Saturday. And Brendon, do you predict the Jets will just be too good on the weekend against the Burleigh Bears, considering their form so far this season? Yeah,
going obviously off the back of last weekend's game, and hopefully a few of their stars are back on deck this week. And no, I think they can really, as I said already today, that game should turn their corner, and they should get a win.
And we've got a bit of a interesting curtain raiser this weekend with the MIT Jets taking on the Warwick Collegians in the Junior Rugby League as well. Good to see a bit of the Jets community aspect coming back into town as well.
Yeah, obviously the brainchild of Stephen Johnson, the chairman of the Jets. So, yeah, no, it'll add to the colour of the day for sure. He's
a man with some interesting ideas as well, ahead of the Hawaiian Rugby League. Well, now to the second big game this weekend will be the current ladder leader Redcliffe Dolphins taking on South's Logan Magpies at home. Bomber, South's coming off a big back of the loss to the Jets, and Redcliffe with another hard-fought win over the Falcons. Do you think Souths have what it takes to get the win?
I think they're going to find it a little bit hard there. They had their home game last week at the Jets at Davies Park there, and obviously the Jets got over the top of them. But like I said earlier, Redcliffe, they're a different team when they have Dolphin Park there. They've got the big crowd, the big supporters there, the can bars yelling and all that there. So I'm tipping Redcliffe, and I think they might win it quite easy.
Brendon, Souths would probably be looking at getting Joe Offengowie back from the Brisbane Broncos after an extra couple of inclusions back into the Broncos outfit this weekend. As we said, a tough task, but do you see the Magpies causing a bit of an upset?
Yeah, I do. I probably disagree with Bom.
Yeah. You're allowed to do that. That's okay.
Battle of obviously two Bronco affiliate sides again. But look, I was impressed by South last weekend. You know, the Jets were on fire, and they went with them for long periods. And I just think I think they can get Redcliffe on the weekend.
They'll probably be smarting after that loss to the Jets as well. They pushed them right up to the final minute. It's always the Jets are a frustrating team to come away with a loss from, especially at home. I guess as Bomber said, it's going to be a tough task at Dolphin Oval though. So you see them taking that frustration out on the Dolphins.
Yeah, look, I think it'd be a challenge for them. But yeah, especially if Joe Offengowie is included in the South side. I just see that as my tip of the round, Bom.
Excellent. Well, we'll find out who was the winner of that tip next weekend with the big Ipswich Jets, former brothers Ipswich Junior, Joe Offengowie. He'd be a big inclusion for the South this weekend. Well, that's all we have time for this week. Brendon, thank you once again for coming back on the program. It's always to have your insightful opinions on this show, especially compared to the Bomber, the man on my right, Bomber Breeze. Once again, it's always a pleasure to have you so early in the morning. Thanks for coming on the show.
No, it's always good covering the greatest game of all.
And Brendon, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, to everyone here from After the 80, we wish you a great weekend full of rugby league. And if you can't get down to North Ipswich Reserve this weekend, check out the live stream via Phoenix Media Hub. Up until next week, it's bye for now.